Ready.
Hello, everyone. It's Maria Turner again, the Executive Director of the Fond du Lac Area Women's Fund, coming to you with another edition of Project Table Talk. This week, we are going to be talking about Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. And I am joined by my two co-hosts, Erin Flood and Kyle Jefferson, who are both members of our Board of Directors at the Women's Fund. And our guests today, Rhianna Zulegar, who is with ASTOP, Sexual Assault Prevention Services, and Haley Lowney, who is with Solutions Center, the domestic violence program here in Fond du Lac County. We're going to do our usual engagement with each other. We're on our third in this series. Project Table Talk began a couple of years ago with tables in restaurants and public places, and now we've reconfigured that to pivot a little bit with COVID and do this virtually to bring you the information, the stories, the insights that align with our mission of facilitating bold change for women and girls in Fond du Lac County. So with that, I will do a little introduction, a more formal introduction of Rhianna and Haley. Rhianna is the Prevention Educator at ASTOP for about 3.5 years now, and she has a degree in Community Health Education from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. She is also a Certified Health Education Specialist through the National Commission of Health Education Credentialing and is currently working toward her master's degree in public health. And Haley is the domestic violence child and teen advocate at Solutions Center for the past 1.5 years, but has worked in the sphere of domestic violence prevention and advocacy for 7 total years. So we have a couple of great experts here to talk to us about teen dating violence, and we hope that we bring some valuable information to our public. So big welcome to everybody today, and I will just kick things off here with the first question for you, Rhianna. Let's start, if we could, in helping our viewers to understand a little bit more. When we talk, we say the term teen dating violence. What is that exactly, and how prevalent of an issue is that here in Fond du Lac County?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we have very similar thoughts of teen dating violence as we do with domestic violence. Unfortunately, a lot of us, not us specifically, but a lot of people do assume that it has to be physical abuse, right? And that's one of those myth busting things that we try to do during all of our awareness months. Teen domestic violence or teen dating violence does not have to be physical. A lot more commonly with teens, it is going to be verbal, emotional, or even through technology like our text messaging and Snapchat and things like that. So it doesn't have to be physical, it doesn't have to be in person, but all of those factors that we see with regular domestic violence, whether it's being controlling, being manipulative, coercing someone into sexual activity or any other activity that they're not comfortable with. All of that can happen with teens, and it does. Some statistics out there show that 1.5 million high school students nationwide experience domestic violence or teen dating violence within a single year. We have 1 in 3 girls in the US being victims of some form of teen dating violence, again, not having to be physical. And one of the issues I think that we have is that it's not getting reported, because if we're not talking about it, then people don't know that they can report or that they should report, which is exactly why we have Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. That's kind of interesting point. So I coach high school sports like football and track. So I get to coach boys and I get to coach girls at the same time. And I'll be the first one to tell you some of the like mood swings and things that you go through, and you try to get the kids to open up, but you don't realize. Instance, like my first year ever coaching on the track, it was a small group. It was actually a group of girls and guys. They were going through a lot of things with like their boyfriends and girlfriends, and like they were always down in a funk, and you would always try to like ask them like, hey, what's going on? They'll say nothing. And then you could just, every day you just in their mood, like, it's just like, are you okay? And you just couldn't really get them to open up. And then lucky enough, after, several days of talking to them, they finally says, hey, I broke up with my girlfriend or boyfriend. They were just saying really mean things about me. And I was like, mean things like what? There was like, oh, you wasn't worth my time. And I'm just like, well, forget about them. They're not worth your time. Like, you can just go on. There's a million other people in the world that are probably more suitable for you anyways. But the thing about that, like, you never think about, like, the small words that you say to somebody can have a big impact, especially getting a young kid's life. I mean, now I really think about it going back, I probably was a jerk, like, just not even trying to be funny. Like, in high school, like, I know I probably said some mean things to some girls that I were talking to in my time, and now I feel really bad because I probably, like, changed their mentality of how they think and how they want to act and how they feel about themselves. And that's kind of interesting, which is bringing to my next question. Like, Haley, what are some of the signs that you look for, or we should be looking for, in, abusive, like, teen dating relationship?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different warning signs, or what we call red flags. People who are on the outside sometimes will notice these more so before the actual individual who's the victim in the situation, but eventually the victim will come to realize it too. But some of those signs can be like an extremely jealous or possessive partner. They could be somebody that forces their partner to isolate or become very dependent on them, specifically for all different aspects of, like emotional health, financial health. Sometimes it's, if they're in a sexual relationship, it could be, that sexual piece as well. They're very controlling, and they could have extreme outbursts of anger, physical or sexual violence. So like Rhianna said, it's not as prevalent as the emotional part. But when we're talking about like jealousy and possessive behaviors in teens, it's more so focusing on that extreme jealousy. So like, again, like was mentioned earlier, like it can be done through text messaging, or it could be done through phone calls. They'll call repetitively, like until there's an answer or a reaction. If they don't get an answer or reaction that way, they will text and text and text asking, who are you with? What are you doing? Why are you with them? How long are you going to be with them? Where are you going next? Sometimes they'll use technology to like locate their partner. So, Snapchat has a map right on there. They can go on that Snap map and find where their partner is, and even follow them at that point in time. Some other extreme forms of jealousy would be telling their partner that they have to take a picture of wherever they are or whatever they're doing and send it to exactly that they're doing what they say that they're doing. This can cause a lot of issues in a relationship. Again, sometimes this is something that's seen more outside of the relationship than inside at first. Another part of that could be that isolation. So they'll make their partner break friendships or stop talking to people that they once, were really close with. They can try and isolate them from their family members. A lot of times they try to say, your parents don't really like me, or we shouldn't be hanging around with your parents as much because they don't approve of our relationship. Just ways to cut off that bond between that individual and their family. Along with that, they will isolate them from doing activities that they maybe once loved doing or enjoyed participating in. May it be sports or like a book club or anything. I mean, any hobbies that they have. So that all brings it to control, right? So control is the main aspect of a lot of this, the power and control. So they'll do whatever they can to take those little pieces of that person's individual identity away from them and kind of conform it to be what their interests are, what their likes are, so that that person has to, again, be dependent and rely on them rather than being their own individual self. And then, like I mentioned, there's always that physical and sexual piece that could be anything from grabbing them to, pushing them down or hitting them. It could be making them do what kids call sexting now, or actually, forcibly having sex with them. So, I mean, there's a lot of red flags out there, and some of them are pretty bright, but sometimes it's really hard to see that until you kind of remove yourself from that situation. And then it's easier to see them when you're actually in that situation.
Yeah, thanks, Haley. As a parent, I mean, listening to all of this is terrifying. And truthfully, my kids are fairly little right now, 7 and 10, but we know that a lot of these behaviors, especially controlling behaviors, you can kind of see start to develop when kids are, younger or in stages as they grow when they feel insecure and are looking for ways to control their environment. Um, or whether it's from trauma. I know there's a million places that it comes from. But as a parent, it's hard to think about talking about some of these things with kids because my first instinct is to just want to protect them and never have to have these conversations. But I know that's not life, and I know that's not helpful to them. It's really only helpful to me, temporarily to maybe avoid that discomfort. But if you think about Rhianna, if you think about ASTOP and Solution Center, when you normally go into schools and you talk to kids about these situations, programs, Women's Fund has been, a supporter of it, whether it's through grants or just being an ally or a partner with you in promoting those programs. Can you talk to us a little bit about, as a parent, when I get the letter home that says that you're going to come into my child's classroom, what kinds of conversations are you having? What kind of conversations are you having with my kids?
Yes, that's so funny because we were just touching base about this a little bit earlier. Something unique, I think, about ASTOP and Solution Center, as well as when they partner with Ignatian Healthcare's domestic violence services, is that we can kind of go about it through all angles. So as we mentioned, ASTOP Sexual Abuse Center, my presentations are going to be focused on the safe versus unsafe touches, which then can develop, into relationships from little on. But really starting at the very beginning with our 4K kiddos, we're talking about protective behaviors. So that's the very basic information, all age appropriate. I think it can sometimes be scary or alarming to get a letter from your school saying ASTOP Sexual Abuse Center is coming in. And for people who don't know who we are or don't know where our presentations are coming from, that can be a little alarming. So it is all age appropriate. We do work off of evidence-based programming. So it's really focused on making sure kids understand that there's a difference between a safe touch and an unsafe touch. And there's differences between when we feel safe and when we feel unsafe. We talk a lot about early warning signs and situations that could make you feel unsafe. So if a person, if it's a kid or an adult that's touching you in an unsafe way, you're going to get those unsafe feelings. And you want to make sure you tell that person no, you get away from them, you tell a trusted adult, things like that. That are really important to talk to your kids about, regardless of whether we're coming in or not. We've been faced with quite a few challenges with COVID, but, we've been able to spread the information via the internet, as well as making sure that people have pre-recorded presentations. So continuing those conversations are huge at home. Again, being age appropriate, those are all going to build on each other. We dive a little bit more into sexual abuse, harassment, what that can look like in a relationship, talking about consent, which is a huge portion of a healthy relationship, and then a lot about reporting, trusted adults. I do some information on healthy relationships, but that obviously is also something that domestic violence services through Solutions or SSM Ignatian Healthcare does. So there is, the variation with both of those. So when we are both able to go in, the kids are actually getting that information about 3 times a year. So it comes from us, comes from Solutions, as well as coming from the counselors, which is really great. Big information like this, you want to have kids hearing multiple times a year. So I guess that's kind of what we talk about. I don't know if Haley wants to add anything specific on your programming since we're not in together, but I know they have great stuff too.
Yeah, so definitely we'll go in and we'll kind of the same thing, starting with the young kids. We start talking about healthy friendships at the young age, and then kind of move into a more progressive, different types of relationships as they grow as well. So once they get into that teenage years, then we can start actually talking about the dating violence and stuff like that. A lot of it is just a lot of healthy friendships, who you can go to and talk to if you're feeling unsafe, or if you're feeling, if you're feeling unsafe at school, if you're feeling unsafe at home, who are your safe people? that's mainly what it is for us.
Yeah, thanks for giving some insights into what parents can expect. I've been on that receiving end too. My kids don't live in the Fond du Lac school district, but so many schools these days are welcoming in nonprofits like yours, which I think is amazing because as a mom of two girls that are now 15 and 20, that has always been something that, one of my greatest fears. Like I need to protect my children from being sexually assaulted in particular. And then as they got older, did we do enough to talk about healthy relationships, And so I've always been very open in having those conversations with my girls at home because I didn't feel like my mom necessarily did a great job with me on that. And so, I think each generation, hopefully as parents, we're working to correct behaviors that we felt maybe our parents could have done a little bit better job on. So I'm like, and my girls are probably like, Mom, you can chill out. You're a little too open with this stuff. But I think it's important to bring that stuff out into the light because the reason that victims often don't tell is because it's been kept in secret and it's been shrouded in darkness and shame. And the more we talk about these incidents, the more we talk about how it is not the child's fault. It is not the girl in the relationship. It is not the boy who got harmed. I think that's key to how we change the perceptions as a community. And really what I, at the Women's Fund, with the Fond du Lac Says No More initiative, that's what I want us to be able to do, this rethinking of addressing these topics. So kind of along those lines in having frank discussions, one of the things I want to bring up is we often get, well, what about boys? Okay, so we're the Women's Fund. Of course, we talk about women and girls first, but I want to make it clear that obviously we recognize that boys are victimized as well. And we also recognize that even though there are similarities in all relationships, whether they're heterosexual or same-sex partners, there are some distinct differences in those relationships as well as victimization between genders. So Haley, could you maybe walk us through on how, with just this broad student body that you're delivering this information to, how do you work through some of those differences that the different types of relationships that people have these days?
Yeah, of course. So when we go into talk in schools, we're talking about relationships, specifically age-based relationships. But that's kind of the cool thing about that is we get to work with the kids from an elementary age. And then, like I said earlier, we get to grow with them. So, at the elementary age, we're focused on friendships and family relationships. As they start to get into that middle school age, we focus more on still family and friendships, but starting to date. And then as they get into teens, it's more of the teen dating violence stuff. So really, we see a lot of diversity with our students, and we're able to see that they're already pretty open-minded as young kids to different types of relationships, different types of friendships. I myself have an 8-year-old daughter, and she says some pretty amazing things to me all the time. She was just home the other day telling me how they were talking about, like the pride flag at school and stuff like that, and how she really respects that and she respects those relationships. So that was really neat for her to be 8 years old and to be telling me about that. But I think when we go into schools, we really want to have those open and honest conversations with them, regardless of what type of relationship we're talking about. Having that openness and that honesty brings forth comfort and touching base on the different types of relationships. A lot of times people do think it's that stereotypical male-female type of relationship. They don't think about anything outside of that. So sometimes if they think, man, I'm not a part of that type of relationship, maybe I'm not experiencing dating violence. Maybe that's not me and I'm just overthinking something. But when we have those conversations, that brings forth that, again, comfort that they can also come forward and talk. It includes everyone, and it brings forth, again, like that inclusiveness for everybody to reach out if they need to. I mean, it also leads us into like that gateway of being able to talk about the fact that dating violence or even domestic violence in general doesn't really discriminate. So it could affect anyone and everyone at some point in time in their life. It could be their best friend, it could be their neighbor. I mean, it could be a stranger in a grocery store, it could be whoever. But it doesn't really pick and choose based off of, race or gender or age or, your sexual orientation. So it unfortunately has no boundaries, which is why we're here today and all the time, so that we can hopefully bring some awareness and start having these conversations at a young age and grow with the kids, so that they can also identify healthy and unhealthy relationships, maybe their own or maybe somebody else's that they're close to.
Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate that. That's a good point. I guess kind of going back to coaching again, it's kind of weird. I think one of the things of being a younger coach is being very honest with them, sharing some of your experiences or sharing my experiences. I grew up, in the dating world, and I always tell the guys, and I only tell the guys, I usually tell them, like, look, it's okay to date, but just make sure you treat this young lady like she's supposed to be treated and not in a very negative way, because I will tell you, it'll always come back to haunt you in ways that you do not want. And on the flip side, even having girls, and my wife talks to the girls pretty often, and she tells them, and says, hey, it goes both ways, right? Be kind to them, because these guys have feelings too. Some guys are sensitive than others. I will always say that. People will say guys are supposed to be tough and be like the brew, especially when you're high school and you're supposed to be an athlete or something. You're supposed to be the toughest guy out there. It's not always the case. Sometimes, like, you're the most sensitive, and that goes a long ways. I think teen dating is weird. I think it's one of those things that we all need help with. I never knew about abusive teen dating. I'd be the first one to tell you, I used to just think it's how life goes, how the cookie crumbles. We were just dating. We didn't work out. We moved on. That's kind of, think how it goes today in some extent, because we don't necessarily think non-consensual. We don't think about that stuff. It's just, we're just dating. That's all it is. We didn't work out. Now it's over. Which is weird, because and again, I'm kind of going off the script with this one, but does some of the teen dating tend off into college though, right? Because in college, you're still a teenager, right? And I think of all the things that I've seen and went through in college, like, it kind of brings you back to it starts in high school, but I feel like as you get older, between when you go out and you move on your own, that really affects you. And that's a question for either one of you. Is college another big avenue where you see a lot of like young teens and young adults go through things that really affect them?
I would say, or I can say specifically for sexual violence, the rates are much higher for college students than like the general population. Whether it's the environment, the stereotypical parties that are taking place, the meeting new people. But yeah, I would assume that it's the same for domestic violence as well. But yeah, definitely for sexual violence, those rates increase with that college age group.
So, Rhianna, I guess the question follows back on you again. So when you think about parents are watching this, they're, some of them are getting freaked out. I've seen Erin's face twice kind of give that, like, holy smoke, I'm never letting my kids grow up. Even I'm a parent myself. I got a 14-year-old daughter, as well as I got an almost 2-year-old son. What are some things what's some advice that you can give to parents to kind of help ease them, like make them feel like, I get it, I understand it's out there, but there are things that we can do together to make sure that our kids or the kids of someone else's friends can be aware?
Yeah, I love this question. I'm very passionate about the fact that parents should be having ongoing conversations with their kids. It's not a one-time thing. Like I mentioned, with us going into the schools, kids are getting the information at least 3 times from us. And that should be the bare minimum, right? I think that parents, like I said, have to have those ongoing conversations. It's not just a one-time sit down, tell them everything they need to know, and then you're done. yeah, you got to keep talking about it. One thing that resonated with me and Maria about your experience, that, you know, you said maybe your mom didn't do, you know, quite enough, and we're changing that. I think, luckily for myself, my mom and I had great conversations. She was always saying, you know, I'm an open book. If you have questions, come to me. And I think that's really important, is creating the relationship with your kid, that you are an open person, and, you know, with some boundaries, right? Maybe not too open depending on how your kid feels, but making sure that you are a safe adult for them to go to. Another thing too is to demonstrate healthy relationships. You know, we know not all parents are married and not all people have partners, but creating healthy friendships, or showing that you can be a cordial and respectful co-parent if you aren't together with their parent. And then two, another great example is to use TV shows, movies, songs, things like that. Use that as a talking point. So you're watching a show, and let's say that maybe you see some unhealthy relationships, or those red flags that Haley was talking about. Point those out and say, hey, what do you think about that? Or what would you do if you saw that happening? Or, you know, what if your friend experienced that? What do you think you could do in that situation? Or something like that. You know, I think we have this thought that all these conversations have to be scary and big, and it has to be, you know, you sit down, you have this family meeting, but it really doesn't have to be like that. There are great resources out there. Obviously, any of us are going to be great resources. I'm always encouraging parents to check us out, you know, Facebook or our website, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But we are more than happy that if parents have questions, give us a call, and we can direct you in the way of great resources. You can meet with our case manager. You can stop by and meet with me if you want resources in person. You know, reaching out to different organizations, you know, in whatever community you're in, is a great example of how you can, you know, get more information if you're not sure where to start. But like I said too, the TV and movies, like, that's a great place to start too, because we're all consuming that anyways. So why not make it a conversation?
What's a good movie?
About healthy relationships, or just in general?
Yep.
So actually, one that comes to mind, so talking about the last question with the sensitive topics, we as a staff actually went and saw the movie Love, Simon, which was about, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but Simon comes out as gay to his family, and it's really interesting, and it talks about relationships and things like that. I want to say there's some unhealthy parts in that movie, but again, another talking point, but that could be kind of making sure that we have those broad views with that, but kind of put me on the spot there. I would say also the TV show Riverdale, for more mature audiences. That one shows a lot of unhealthy relationships and unhealthy things that go on, because you have, you know, the examples of like a student and a teacher, like big red flag, big unsafe, technically illegal. Very illegal, but that can be stuff too, like, hey, you know, that's not normal, right? Like, not okay.
Yeah, I love all of the suggestions that you gave. Really powerful examples about ways to connect with kids around topics that, quite frankly, are uncomfortable or difficult to talk about. I just want to thank both of you for coming on today. You've just given us so many great resources, and I think people listening will have a lot of courage to start having more of these conversations, and especially to normalize these kinds of discussions in their household. I hope that that's one thing that, you know, today's episode of Table Talk does, is encourage people to have these discussions around their tables with their families and their circle of influence. It's really important. We know that ASTOP, Solution Center, Agnesian, SSM, are extremely dedicated to helping victims or survivors of abuse figure out how to process and you know, be able to move forward in their life. If anyone who's listening right now thinks, gosh, I just need more resources, where should we point them?
So I can take that. Some areas that you can point them, like you said, our local resources are probably Agnesian, us, and ASTOP. But if there's teens specifically, there's a really cool website called loveisrespect.com. It's really teen focused and it talks a lot about teen dating violence. They also have the national hotline on there for any teens that are experiencing teen dating violence. Another really cool piece about that is that they have a text line as well.
Mhm.
So if kids aren't open to talking, they can text in or they can even go on the website and chat in. The phone number, I don't have it memorized, so hold on. The phone number for the national hotline is 1-866-331-9474. And then that text line is, they text the word love is, all together as one word, to 22522. Again, that's right on the Love is Respect website. Another great resource for just any domestic violence type of stuff would be going to endabusewisconsin.org. They've got a lot of great resources, just information, also like areas that you can get help from if you're not specifically in Fond du Lac County, but you're watching this. So utilize that. I don't know if there's anything else that you have to add to that, Rhianna.
Yeah, I'm going to make a plug for the Fond du Lac Prevention Education Committee, which some of us are a part of.
Yep.
So we have been sharing a ton of information regarding Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. I don't remember if the text line has posted quite yet on that page. I do have that. I know it's scheduled to post. So all of the posts have an orange background to go with Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month's color. Orange, it's so good. So all of those are organized, you know, there's the Facebook, the Instagram, a really quick, you know, just a search of Solution Center or ASTOP or SSM domestic violence, like that's going to bring up our websites, our Facebook pages, all that sort of stuff. If you were to call one of us and we determine, you know, whether through conversation or even meeting with you that, you know, you're going to be better suited for another service, we're all great. You know, we're great friends. We all refer easily. So, you know, let's say I come into ASTOP, but it turns out I need more assistance with domestic violence. I need shelter. You know, our staff is going to give me a referral over to Solution Center and vice versa. So don't be afraid to reach out to any of us. That's really important that, you know, we are all a circle so we can refer within as well.
How about quick numbers for both of your programs? Rhianna, what is the number to call local?
Yep. So ASTOP's number is 920-926-5395. That's going to be our 24-hour hotline as well. Regarding sexual violence, anything related to that, give us a call. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nights, weekends, holidays. There's always someone there.
Okay. And Haley, I know you guys have a crisis line too at Solution Center. What would that be?
We do. So I'm actually just going to give you the main phone line number that you can call. It's 920-923-1743. And then that will direct you to domestic violence services. And again, that's also 24 hours, 365 days a year. We're always here to help.
Excellent. Well, that's our time. Man, these go so quickly. I feel like I can sit and chat with our guests for hours on these topics. But so thank you both Rhianna and Haley for coming and educating us a bit more on teen dating violence. Thank you and the rest of the staffs at Solution Center and ASTOP for the work that you do every single day. I know that with the pandemic over 2020, just so many changes occurring that are related to domestic violence and sexual assault and opening victims up potentially to more of that, especially the isolation piece of all of that. So I know that your programs, even though you're probably not considered on the front lines, you've been on the front lines during 2020 and before, and you're going to go on after. So thank you for the work that you're doing every day. Very much appreciated. Project Table Talk, again, just real quick here is an offshoot of our Fond du Lac Says No More initiative. You can find out more information about that initiative at fdlsaysnomore.com. If you have ideas that you want to shoot me a message about, you can reach me at fdlawomen'sfund@gmail.com. Beyond that ends this episode, and our next one will be March 11th at 1 o'clock. And we're going to take a deeper dive in some topics that we're covering as part of International No More Week. So we hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.